that you're born an Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano, and your life will be great.
How about some Donadell?
That's a nice.
Ciao Paisani, and welcome back to the Italian American Podcast. We've got a very special episode for you today, and this is the first part in what ended up being an amazing two-part conversation that I am very confident you're going to love. We had so much fun doing this one, and actually I think it's going to become a little bit of a recurring part of the podcast family here. So hopefully you guys enjoy our incredible conversation with the newest member of the Italian American Podcast team, Zia Rosa. Hey there, Paisani, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian American Podcast. I'm John Viola, along with my partner in crime, the notorious POB, Patrick O'Boyle. We are here at
the East German Studios.
Yes, in his favorite place in the world.
Because now, before when we did this, I was home in my pajamas, in my basement, which is the God's honest truth.
Yes, that's true.
With the
Gandina behind you.
Right, with the ear things on. Yeah. And I would surf on my phone.
Yeah.
And now people are going to look at my posture. I'm going to be like analyzed.
Posture's tough, actually. I'm conscious
my
of my
hairline
posture.
is in running away.
I'm never recording without a hat on ever again. Because my hair. The lights, you see my bald spots. No, I'm not doing
We're going to get them done, though. We decided that.
Pat and I are going to go for plugs. Anybody out there who's an Italian plug doctor wants to sponsor.
Oh, here we're going to get...
send us free plugs. You know, we'll brag about the rug on the show.
Yeah, John, get in the stick it in there.
Come in like Frankie Avalon. Dr. Zupardi's hair plugs. Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Great sponsorship.
But see, now everybody watches. Like, we had snacky time.
We ate, yeah.
We were going to remove the snacky time plate, but I said the most Italian way you could have is a table with a plate with crumbs in it.
Yeah, a messy table is real. It's realistic.
Yeah, this is real. We actually had the coffee.
Yes, we did.
And now we don't clean the table because we have a certain brand of water that's an
unnamed brand
that hasn't responded to our phone calls for sponsorship.
We're negotiating with a couple other brands, so that's exciting. We will have an official.
I want a Southern Italian.
I know you want a Southern brand. You know, you told me something.
But that's not an anti-Northern one. I think there's a lot of one thing I found about the United States is Americans fixate on a brand.
Yeah.
So there's a few top Italian brands in whatever category, and the beauty of Italy is that they're regional brands of products, right? So even if we had a Northern water that was boutique, some small stuff, I enjoy that because that's the beauty of Italy is that and you can get something that you can't get 500 miles. Within their delivery might be, we might have a bottled water company that only does within 100 miles of the spring.
And frankly, these mystery brands here. They're all global conglomerates now anyway. I mean,
correct.
The water comes from Italy, but they're not, there's no Italian guy running the bottling plant. But you taught me something.
Did I tell you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was in shock because before the conversation we were talking a little bit about these waters that we have to tape up, and you told me that ShopRite, the supermarket, their brand of spring water.
Their house brand.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's still the fact because I used to buy it before COVID. And it was in a big liter.
That changes everything.
Big liter bottle. I think what happened was they had supply chain issues, and then they went to plastic bottles. And I haven't seen it particularly on the shelf in a while. Yeah. I haven't really looked for it, but maybe it's still Whole Foods has the same thing. But the ShopRite, I think they used. I don't know what their house brand was, but their house brand water was from Basilicata.
That's amazing. The bottled water
because they got a great price. Because whoever was, I guess. What is their Wakefern? I guess that's all they're buying, right? Wakefern probably got a great deal from a small producer in Italy.
That's really amazing. The thing, I mean, and
that's why I used to enjoy buying their water because I said it's
from the mountains.
It's from the mountain water.
They come down, they make fountains, and they attach it to the mountain, and you could see the water just gushing down.
Now we have a Lucani, a guest with us today from Basilicata, by the way. Let's make an introduction fast. We have Zia Rosa, who is
the Zia Rosa.
Zia Rosa.
There is like certain Italian names that are the prepositions.
Yes.
Like there's only one guy and one Zia Rosa.
That's right.
And this is the Zia Rosa.
Yes. She is here as part of the Familia today at the Italian American Podcast because her nephew Nicky, who you've all met now through our social media.
We have so many Nickies around. You baptized him Nicky Boy.
Yeah, Nicky Boy.
Now you're in my phone
I
as a Nicky
like that
Boy.
name.
Yeah.
I like that name, Nicky Boy.
I think he's in my phone as Nicky Boy too. Yeah, and Nicky, our producer.
Well, so a lot of people don't understand Italian. This is a learning moment. Italians had nicknames.
Sure.
Right, so you have all these TV shows or mafia shows have like Jimmy Boy and Jimmy Two Times because since people had 12 kids and they named their children after grandparents, you would wind up with 4 kids with all the same names. Like when my mother went to school, went to school in Jersey City, she had 4 cousins with the exact same name.
My father's
Right.
Vinny, right? My father's Vincent. His grandfather was Vincenzo. So he has him who has dark black hair, they called Vinny Black. He had a cousin with red hair, Vinny Red. He had a cousin called Vinny Jr., who wasn't a junior because his father's name was Agnello. But everybody had to get an amendment to the name so that you could tell. I mean, I'm named after my grandfather, John, right? My cousin, John, is 6'2", I think. He's 31 years old. I'm still called Big John, even though I'm the shortest cousin, but for my girl cousin, Sarah. I'm the shortest by far of my brothers and cousins. But I'm Big John because I'm the oldest, and he's Little John. Just doesn't.
So that's why a lot of people wonder.
Yeah.
The learning moment. I know a lot of people like to watch the podcast so we talk about these things. People had these names because you had especially most towns in the south of Italy, though, let's say about 2,000 people, they maybe had 8 to 12 last names.
Sure.
That would, like maybe 60% of the people in town had 8 to 12 last names. Some towns, it was even more.
Yeah.
That, almost the whole town had 3 or 4 last names.
Yeah.
So if your whole town is Antonio Russo, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's true.
So then all people came up, because even if you see the obituaries in Italy, they put the obituaries around town. I don't know how you'd say it, like in a poster.
Yeah,
Right?
a public posting.
Public posting, and the undertaker goes around and puts a posting, that such and such died, because in Italy they don't embalm. That stuff has started, but they don't. So the funerals are very quick,
I
right? You
know
don't
that.
have. Oh yeah, Italy is.
I had no idea.
A lot of bodies are still prepared at home.
Yeah.
I did not know.
The
That.
wakes at home,
And it's
and
only 2 days, 3 days, then.
I mean, here it's become quite a process. You could wait weeks for.
sure, which wasn't the case years ago.
I had no idea.
But in Italy, they'll put the poster up and they'll say Antonio Russo, and then they'll say his nickname was,
Right.
the Falcon.
Check-
It might be
yeah,
something
exactly.
completely
Right. Right.
or like people. And sometimes it wasn't even like Big Tony, Small Tony. They'd have a name that was completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Well,
That was a completely-
My grandfathers, they would know him as Antonio di Napoli, but they would put it as Antonio Fruttivendolo because he used to sell frutta, he used to sell vegetables and peanut. He used to have a big baracca in the piazza. So
Baracca is like a shed.
yeah,
A baracca is like a shed, yeah.
but a huge one, the best one there. And he used to sell fresh fruit, dry fruits, nuts, vegetables, homemade stuff, and that's,
Maybe this is a great intro, now that we had this said, to who our guest is today.
Yeah, Zia, you're here because we've been having these conversations in house here at the studio, right? Nikki joined our team when we came in here, and we've been talking about some of the things that our family does as a sort of home remedies to, a lot of maladies that are kind of, everyday common stuff that people have lost. And Nikki kept saying, but you got to talk to my Zia. She knows. You are your family's keeper of all the traditions, aren't you?
These are the stories that when we sit down on holidays, they try to let me talk about it. And we had a time that my mother just passed, so I could just go on, and that's how I remember my mom. And not only with all these stories, but also with the cooking, making special things that she used to cook. This is how my mother made it. And I'm the only one now who knows, out of 4 sisters, I'm the oldest, that knows how to make scalcione, knows how to make this. Let's go to Rosa.
You are the oldest.
Yes, the
But you're
oldest.
important because every family needs a Zia Rosa.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you know everything. People are
Yeah.
going to go, you're the point of reference, right? So if they say, how are we related to such and such, you know.
Yeah.
Why such and such about grandma, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
How come I made it the way mom used to make it and it didn't come out right?
Yeah, because
and
she
you
didn't do
know.
that. Yeah, I know.
But she knows other stuff too.
But it's so funny because I want to get into some of these specifics because a lot of the stuff we've talked about with Nikki is important stuff to pass on, and I learn things and I want the audience to learn them. But it's so interesting to have this conversation because in some ways you all of us here, represent a lot of what our audience is, which is that person in the family who becomes the font of everything. I was at a family wedding this weekend. My cousin got married, my cousin Joseph, who's like in the middle of all the cousins. And I'm the oldest cousin. And I do all the cooking, traditions, this and that. And so my cousin Sarah, who's 15 years younger than me, was born...
That's Uncle Frankie's.
Uncle Frankie's daughter, yeah. She was born the year before, right before my grandfather died. And she was maybe 6 when my grandmother died, right? So she didn't have all those Sundays. I was 16 when my grandfather died, and I was 20-something when my grandmother died. So she and I sat next to each other at the dinner, and we're talking, and she said, Big John, tell me what you remember about Grandma and Grandpa. And it was like a really sort of frozen in time moment for me, because it dawned on me that for my little cousins, I was the source of whatever information they could glean, right?
Yeah,
and it was really like this sense of responsibility. That's you.
Yes, I am. And I remember little things like they would go, how did Nonna deal with things in our town, Tricarico? And I would go, what things? Like when someone was sick or someone, well, we used to get up with earaches. This is another thing, earaches, very bad earaches. My grandmother, as soon as she would hear, she would go into the kitchen, olive oil of all things. She would put it in a little, because we used to have the stove that you put the wood in,
Sure,
and
yeah.
the old-fashioned kind. There was no heating like here.
Sure.
There's no gas or electric. It was a wood-burning stove.
Yeah, wood burn, and that's what we had. And then we had the fireplace, but a huge fireplace that we would cook our soup on.
Sure.
And she would make our pasta fazool on the side. She was tremendous, my grandmother. So she would take the olive oil, she would put it in a little cup or in a little tin cup or a little spoon, but not a lot, and she would just make it warm up enough. Now, it has to be just warmed up enough. So she would put a finger in it, she would put it in our mouth, and she would see if it's too hot, she would blow on it and then she would put a few drops in the ear.
Wow.
And then as soon as you would go in, it was like balm, like it would warm up the whole canal of your ear, and then not burning, it had to be just warmed up enough. And then she would plug it with cotton, a little cotton ball, and you would keep it the whole day. By the night, you would be okay, and you wouldn't have the earache. I mean it.
You have in your town, there's a story of an earache
Ralph
treatment,
Vitale.
which is, I think, the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But
Ralph's in Italy right now.
The scientists say there's reasons.
I thought
for-
mine was...
No, yours is going to seem very normal compared to this.
He said that. So he's born 1957. I'm not giving anything away, but just to put things in context.
Perspective, yeah.
And when he was a kid in Italy, when he would have an ear infection, they would go to a woman who was lactating, so she was nursing a baby.
The milk of the baby.
Right, and they put your ear down, right, and the aunt would take out her breast and shoot in
Yes.
breast milk, and he said the breast milk used to kill.
Yes.
Now I know there's going to be doctors, there's going to be
No, but
Dr. Teresa,
But-
probably pediatricians.
No.
You can't do this. We are not. Hold on, let me just say this. We are not giving medical advice. This
No,
is history.
it's just
Tradition.
So if you put
tradition.
oil in your
Yeah.
kid's ear and your kid
Please,
dies,
no.
or if you're
Oh my
running around
gosh,
with a
no.
lactating woman,
Because-
it was not us.
No,
We're
I
not
will
telling
never
you that.
come
right.
here again.
Right, but somebody will come here
No.
and say, I know there's going to be pediatricians calling
No.
up.
Nikki
Because
got
I
a
asked the
flash.
pediatrician this.
Warning.
I asked the pediatrician, I said, is it true about breast? And they went like
But then
and they went
you read
crazy.
stuff about the
Yeah, but he said,
antibacterial
but he said the same thing as you. He said that once the breast milk went into his ear,
Yeah, because
the infection, the same would go away. Now,
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
exactly, there's
I am
enzymes
not
in breast milk.
I am a doctor because I have a JD.
Yes, you're
I
a
am not a
doctor of
physician.
law. No, you're not.
I am not a physician, so there's going to be an army of physicians. Nick Coltzarelli, the rest of them, they're going to come over the hills for us for this.
No,
I was agreeing with what I was saying, but he said that it worked. I don't know. Was it antibacterial stuff? Was it
Yeah.
what do you call it?
There's all kinds of
Psychosomatic?
enzymes
What is it?
in
What's that?
breast milk.
What's the thing with the fake pill?
Placebo. effect.
Placebo. I don't
Could
know.
I say something else too
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
sure.
even more crazier than that? Okay. I got bit by a dog when I was a little girl in Tricarico, my town. I used to go and pick flowers. This dog came in. He wasn't a sick dog. He was a normal dog, but he was aggressive. If you go into other people piece of land, they would let the dog come after you,
Sure.
and it would bite you. I was a little girl. I wanted to get flowers for my mother and my grandmother and bring it there to them,
Yeah.
So this dog bit me on my leg really bad. My grandmother, she was so upset. So she saw me with the blood and she cleaned me up. She says, what happened? I told her. She went back to the owner. She goes, I want the urine of your dog. I want the urine of your dog. With the urine of the dog, she came to me. She threw it on my bitten leg. Do you know that it would kill the bacteria? It would kill the infection right there.
I can imagine.
So it went away?
The urine of the dog. The
That
urine
is
of the
so-
dog, I'm telling you.
That's got to be such an ancient approach to something to be passed down into
But
your
that's what they
lifetime.
did.
Of course.
That's what they did in
Well,
those
in a
days.
world before, someone told me they had a family member, and I wish to, because so many people tell me so many stories that sometimes I forget who told me and whose family it was. During the war, they could not get penicillin. So penicillin was a big change, right? So penicillin comes out in the 20s. Now
See.
they could change things.
Yeah.
During the war, because of the Germans and the Americans battling, their town couldn't get penicillin. And people who could have easily been cured of stuff died because they couldn't get penicillin. So people, I'm saying, even people don't realize that we have such luxury today,
Yeah.
right? You don't feel good, you call the doctor calls
yeah.
the pharmacy, and an hour you get, an antibiotic and it goes away. But what happens when you don't have access to that stuff, and when you didn't, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fascinating the things that people did to cure. What are the other cures that you remember?
Okay,
Remedies?
the other thing is oregano.
Oh, oregano's amazing.
Wait a minute. Oregano, put in olive oil, fresh oregano, put in olive oil, and let it stay there in a dark place. Oregano, you could use it for antibiotics.
Absolutely.
It's a
That's
it-
my
my
family
grandma-
still does that.
my grandmother swore by it.
My mom too.
The oregano.
Sorbet.
So
The
the
oregano.
dried oregano.
The fresh oregano.
Oh, not dried.
Fresh oregano.
Oh, because tradition.
Fresh
Because
oregano.
most in Italy, just so people, we have a lot of people who don't know a lot of stuff. They're not familiar with things, right? In Italy, usually people, and you lived there, I didn't, but people would go up into the mountains
Yeah.
and they would pick oregano,
With my grandmother.
right, and they would hang it to dry.
Yeah.
So in Italy, like I see some people cooking with fresh oregano today. In my opinion, I never heard any old school Italian person cook with fresh oregano. It was
I
always
cook
dry.
fresh oregano.
You do use fresh.
And I also
Was that common in your town?
and I also use the dry one. Okay, I use both, and most of my focaccia, whatever, I ask Nikki. I go for the fresh, the herbist, herb and the fresh.
But is that you or was that your family?
My family, my grandma,
She used the fresh.
Yeah.
So the oregano in the oil was a fresh oregano in the oil, and that was her. Now, did she make that? Was that always kept like on a shelf somewhere, or did you just make that? Someone's sick. Let's get the oregano and the oil together.
First of all, we used to have a big orto, which is a little garden right outside our door on the side of my grandmother used to have everything in there, from oregano to lemon grass to lemongrass.
Yeah.
My grandmother knew about lemongrass.
What was the dialect word for that? What did you call it?
Like under do limon. Like under do limon. My dialect is
Right.
really, I mean, it's like a Malays. It's like.
Because you wear puglia. Because just so you know what
Yeah.
picarico is, basilicata is broken into two pieces, right?
My town, it's called Tricarico, which means it has three. It comes from a three mountains, and
Right.
it was burned down about 3 times before it was rebuilt. And Attila went
Wow.
through it, and
Oh,
you could
wow.
still see La Torre Grossa, which Nikki, you
So
got
that-
picture.
Attila the Hun in English.
Yes, there was a tower there. Still, a tower is there. That then it was changed into a monastery fundance, and it's still there. It's still there. And now, on top of the tower, you go to the museums they have there. You could go all the way on top, and you could see that Mussolini passed by there. That everything that the town went through, from World War II to now. They have pictures. They have things there that you could see.
Can you
up to
imagine a
this
town
day.
could say Attila the Hun was here?
Yes.
That's it.
That's amazing.
But that's only
That's the-
because I went to
that's-
school
sure.
and I learned
That's it.
from school.
Yeah.
That's the teaching that my teacher would teach me. Also, Mussolini passed by my town, and Mussolini tapped the head of my mother.
Wow.
Went actually to my mother and tapped her head like this.
Wild.
Are you the biggest town in that part of Basilicata?
No, it's actually a small town, and now I have to tell you this. They don't even have a hospital. They have to go either to Potenza or Matera. They go to Matera, that it's closer, because they're closing it down. They had a monastery of monks there, and they had to close it down because the people, after COVID, a lot of people died.
It's a depopulating, unfortunately.
Yeah. And if they are in labor, or if they need doctors, they have to go to Matera.
That's the scary thing.
But your town, just so people have an idea, if you break Basilicata, there's Potenza and there's Matera.
And my town is smack in the middle.
And
you could look it in the map. Tricarico in the smack in the middle of Matera and Potenza.
Because Potenza is more Lucania.
See.
It's more toward Campania.
Yeah.
It bends it's like a tree that bends two ways.
When we come from Rome, we go to Potenza. I'm sorry that I'm cutting you off.
No, not at all, not at all. I'm just telling people because a lot of people have no idea where these places are.
But you see, the when you go to my town and you take the train from Roma, you take it, you want to go to my town, and it stops in Potenza. Then my cousin would come and pick us up at Potenza, and then he would drive us to Tricarico. But then, if you wanted to go see Sassi, because that time when I went and took my mother, it was the Passion of the Christ that came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Matera, they filmed the
Passion
of Christ.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that because you're in a town that is in the middle of the Potenza that goes to Campania and the Matera that bends toward Puglia.
Yes.
But Matera is one of the oldest inhabited
Yes.
places in the world.
It's the second oldest continually inhabited urban site in the world.
And the reason I bring that up
after
is
Jericho.
And the best
the food is fantastic. I have to say.
It's the center of the best food.
We always say one of the best meals we ever ate together.
It was in Matera, hands down. It was December 7th. Matera does like a vigil for the Immaculate Conception. The Immaculate Conception on December 8th.
Oh.
So they do like a mini Christmas Eve, like you have a 7 fish. They have a similar meatless evening meal for the vigil of the Immaculate Conception. But I bring this up because that area was second oldest, did you say?
Second oldest after Jericho.
So these are remedies that could go back 10, 15,000 years.
This is what she was taught by a great-grandmother and the mother after her mother by a father.
Daughter to daughter to daughter.
Yes.
But it's amazing to think about this. My cousin's husband is a scientist, and him and I were having a conversation about headaches, and he said something about Advil or Tylenol, and he said, but John, you have to understand, like that stuff is just, a lot of these modern medicines, at least the older ones, are just concentrated chemical compounds from like trees, right? Tylenol came from bark that people would chew. I grew up, I'm only 40, but my mother, as an antiseptic, we had the oregano oil. I don't know if it was oregano in oil or if it was the oiled, like the olive oil, whatever, the little bottle. And I'll never forget, my mother got a cut on her head one time. You'd think a person would go to the hospital, right? It would look like you need stitches. And she just put oregano oil on it, and it burns. I mean,
because it stayed there. Understand? It fused it in
your
there.
head will spin, but it is the most antiseptic thing, and the thing dries
And
up.
the other thing also that my grandmother would use a lot: fresh honey. Honey.
Honey's amazing.
Honey.
What would she use the honey for?
Cuts and burns. Burns. If you get burned, you will put the honey on it.
Just honey.
Honey, and you just leave it there. Just leave it there.
And this would be, because I'm into the gastronomic stuff, the honey you buy today on the shelf. Honey, if you buy honey from a farm, it's going to get hard over time.
Yeah.
It's still good, because honey
absolutely.
but it's going to get hard over time. Then you got to scoop it out, and you got to heat it up. So there's a lot of stuff that's done to honey that you get on the shelf.
You have to buy raw honey.
So it's always liquid, fluid.
If you know
But the old
a
school
place
honey,
that has the honey, I would suggest go to that place.
the old where you get it off the farm and not the farm, the beekeeper and all that stuff.
Because that's when
Apiary.
it's
Apiary.
that's when it's full of all full of enzyme, all full of the
I mean, the
disinfectant.
Egyptians would preserve birds and things in honey, and nothing gets in honey, right? Like you honey cannot rot. It's got total antiseptic quality.
You want to hear a funny story?
Go ahead.
And I've never thought, this has not come into my head for like 20, 25 years.
Wow.
My grandmother told me a story my grandmother's sister told me, because my grandmother was not the keeper of the information. Her sisters were. I had to ask her, because she used to say to me, what do you care? They're all dead. You annoy me with these questions. What do you care? My grandma was concerned about what she was going to cook that night. That was my grandmother's, or ironing clothes or washing stuff, and that was her concern. But my aunt told me that, so my great-grandmother was born in 1880. So my great-grandmother born in Pian di Sorrento in 1880. Was very short as a little kid, and they thought she was a midget. So they took cow manure, and they made my great-grandmother stand in cow manure. They made her like, what do you call that thing? Now, I'm sure that did not work, right? But they made her stand. Like they put, I don't know, a bucket or something, and they packed her in cow manure. And my aunt told me, see, my grandmother always dismissed why you ask all these questions, but today it has value. I get aggravated sometimes. Right? I think I used to say, what do you care about? 'Cause I would ask my aunt, because I had some aunts who were more talkative, right? I guess, because I never got I call it Jersey City versions of stories. I had to piece them back together.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't want to say plague or influence, whenever there was a sickness, if there was a sickness in the house, they used to take the plaster off the wall.
Wow.
They used to deplasterize the wall because they thought the sickness
was in the plaster.
Was in the plaster. And I remember.
What would they put there, though?
I don't know.
Could
See, I would ask my aunt. Oh, you know? Oh, you heard of this?
Could I tell you? Vinegar. Vinegar.
So you heard of the plastic got taken off the wall?
Vinegar. They would take it off the wall, and then they would throw vinegar, because you see, they used to make the wine, and from the wine, then they used to put like a aceto.
With the mother the vinegar, which I use at home.
They used to put like a piece of dough. The dough, it would turn the pasta, the wine aceto.
Yeah.
And then they used to throw it, because they used to thrive in it, because they would grow
on the walls. But you heard about the plastic coming off?
Listen, my mother had what is it called? Wait, mannaggia. That you turn yellow.
Jaundice.
No, not jaundice. No, she was in the hospital. She caught it because I know what it is. L'epatite virale. I know that in Italian, but I don't. She caught it by, we had a lot of pigs and cows, so she would go and clean these cows and these pigs, and the dirt from there went in her eye.
Oh, my goodness.
And so her belly started, she thought she was pregnant.
Oh,
she wasn't pregnant. My aunt, our aunt, Zia Mamela, took her to the doctor, says, I'm going to go to the doctor, come with me, Angela. So she went. And the doctor says, you go home, you go take care of our kids. She's going to go to the hospital because she has l'epatite virale. I just escapes me the word in English. Hepatitis.
Hepatitis, mamma mia.
Hepatitis. So they put my mother in the hospital. My mother, she had me and my sister Philomena. They had to call my father because she was in a very bad way. And so my father came from Germany. He used to work in Germany. And my grandfather, Papa Nonno, would look after us, and Nonna and our aunts and my uncle. So they would. And when my father came and we had to go see Mama, we used to go behind the door with masks. We couldn't go in and see her, and we had to see through the glass door, and she was in this bed. So they go like this. They go, we give her a week. By tonight, she's gonna take this medication. If she sweats, really sweats, she's gonna make it. Otherwise, I suggest you go get the priest, you make arrangement, because she will die.
Oh my God.
So I don't know what they gave him, a lot of medication. She started sweating to the point that the mattress was saturated so badly that you could wring it, And the next morning, the fever broke, and my mother made it.
Oh, my God.
Okay, but that's, she got l'epatite virale. So now, where they used to have this sickness, they would say, don't go there because that's where you're going to catch. So they would take vinegar, and they would throw it. I mean, splash it. Okay, they would take the plaster, everything as much as they can off, okay?
Yeah. You are blowing me away right now, because I would hear wacky stories, and I would know how much of it was true.
Yeah.
I said to myself, how did they go? My aunt was telling me the story, my grandma's older sister, and I said, did they? And I said to myself, I guess not cose pazze. Did they go through the whole house taking? But you're telling me that that's true.
These were stories that my grandmother used to say to us, my great-grandmother. And then, with COVID, what I did, I used vinegar in my house.
So did we.
Because we couldn't get anything
Sure.
else. Vinegar kills germs.
I'm going to give you a little bit of history to bring it in, right? Because you're from a town thousands of years old.
Yeah.
The Roman legionnaires
Yeah.
would put vinegar in their water
Yeah.
to make it an antiseptic, but
See.
they didn't know why.
Right.
Like the same way, like
It
if
was-
you take tea and coffee, like they say, why did cowboys drink coffee all day? Right? They were
Yeah.
boiling. Think about American coffee, right? So what's American coffee? In Italy, they call it like muddy water because
Water,
it's,
yeah.
it's a little bit of
Acqua
coffee,
sporca,
but
yeah.
they don't understand.
Acqua
it.
sporca,
They don't understand why it was aqua. It was aqua sporca because the cowboys realized if they made coffee, they didn't get sick from the water. But if
Yeah.
they just drank the water, they could get sick. They didn't realize it was the boiling of the water
Right.
that
That would
killed
kill
the
the-
bacteria.
yeah.
So they thought it was the coffee that was
No.
killing them. So they would put a little bit of coffee. So you take like my brother was just in Slovenia, right? And he asked the people in Slovenia, what do you have for breakfast? And the guy said, we don't have coffee. We have beer in the morning, right? So why did Germany and why did all these countries drink beer all day long? Because beer was pasteurized
Yeah.
through the beer making process and it was clean. Why were Romans drinking or Italians drinking wine all day long? Because if you didn't have a fontana to have clean water, they knew that the wine wasn't getting you sick the way that kind of standing water did. But if you take that, the reason I'm bringing all this together is the Romans knew vinegar had an antiseptic property. They didn't understand why. It was the
Yes,
acid.
yes.
And that knowledge came all the way down.
Yes. Another thing I want to say. My grandmother would use a regular potato cut in half. She would put it on your forehead and tie it. The headache will go away.
I've heard of that before.
The headache would go
Yeah.
away.
I have heard of that. I don't know who.
My grandmother
that.
used
There's some doctor listening to this in their car.
No, but
And
like
they
I
would be
driving-
laughing.
But think,
They're
about, no,
saying-
but think about all these
Oh, they
countries.
either
like-
want to
No,
kill me,
correct,
they're going to put a hit on me and
correct.
kill
They're
me.
gonna-
The episode title is going to be 3 out of 3 non-doctors
Oh
recommend.
my
because-
God.
I don't know medicine. Doctor, I'm going to get
No,
text
but
message. I don't know.
I see people
I'm
put
talking
onions
to-
on their feet.
Yes,
Right?
I'm talking to you guys. Look,
Yeah.
talking about on their feet. If something fell on your foot and it caught a real bad infection that we would have pus, you know what my grandmother
What?
would do? Whatever on the finger, il pomodoro, the tomato. She would make a hole and she would put it on your finger, on your thumb, and it would suck. The acidity of the tomato would suck out all of the
Makes sense.
pus.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something. My own. I got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff wrong with me. Up here, all through my body.
Oh, my
the head is
God.
number one, right? This is shot, and then it comes down like a river. I have my hands will go right now. I have terrible skin. I have
Yes.
I've had eczema
Yeah.
and psoriasis my whole life. I had it in first grade. My first grade teacher thought I had chicken pox, and the only thing that has helped it over the years is sunshine.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And I really meant that. So I went to
Vitamin
I'm at
D.
the dermatologist, all this, and I
Yeah.
noticed when I'm in the sun, and I don't know what it does. I don't know, but somehow, and I've read this online that the sun helps this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, wow. I said, there's something really, because recently I've been trying to get more sun,
Yeah.
not to get burned, but just
No,
get
but you
more
have to get it, yeah.
exposure.
Yeah.
I'm going to intercede here. I just wanted to say real quick, Zia, tell
Yeah.
your story about the fruit cart that you would nonno and what you would do when you were in the monastery.
So the story as it goes is this. One morning, I always suffered with very bad toothaches. One of the remedies that my grandfather would put honey over my tooth. So what happened, it didn't work. I got a very bad cyst in my mouth. And they called it una ciste fulminante. So this is...
Doesn't Italian diseases sound beautiful?
una
I sound like a model. If you didn't know, you could, like an actress. I mean, there's such...
I'm sorry.
No, but I'm saying Italian. When you hear disease in Italian, it sounds really nice.
It does. Yeah.
That's all. I was trying. It sounds beautiful. Say that again. What was it?
Una ciste fulminante.
That sounds like that's like a
nicer than
designer.
assist,
What
yeah.
a beautiful shirt you got from. What's that? What's the? Come say how you say it again?
Una cista
Yeah.
fulminante.
Una cista fulminante made my shirt. Una cista fulminante tie. You should make a tie coming. Una cista fulminante ties.
It does.
So
Like I want to start the assorted collection.
So I went to sleep. I was fine. I get up one morning. My eye was so swollen, it was like somebody beat me up. I look like the color purple of this. I mean, purple of the candies. So bad. they saw the fever, and the fever was high. So my grandfather picked me up, put me in the. He called it tre ruote. It was a truck with three wheels.
Yeah,
and he
lape.
knew. No, lape. Il tre ruota.
A lot of Americans don't. In Italy, that was like once they got rid of the donkey,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause everybody had a donkey because you needed a donkey to help you on the farm. Tre ruote was like the 1950s. Well, with the Fiat
truck.
Cinquecento was to get driving around. Like, oh my God, we got a car now. The tre ruote was for farm work.
Yes.
Because it was like a glorified. I want to say it was like a motorcycle that
truck.
graduated.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It was like a tiny little
and they
truck.
Had a little,
yeah.
I had a little cabin that you could sit in. Two people, three
That's
people.
not like the ape.
No, the
it
ape
was-
is
it
a
was the
motorcycle.
tre ruote was like-
ape. Ma this was il tre ruote.
It put the donkey out of business.
Yes. But my grandfather.
That's the truth. That the juice was disappeared because now you had a tre ruote. Yeah,
So
that's
my
true.
grandfather, we put me in the tre ruote and took me to like a Samuta in Trigarico. So as soon as they saw me, this doctor goes, "Oh my God!" So they took X-rays and all. She goes, "Listen, you have to take her to Bari or Bologna because she needs an operation and she needs to take this off. Otherwise, it's going to go in her brain. She's going to die."
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
put a map on the screen of how far from your town are Bari and Bologna. Those are your two options you had, or you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Bari, it's
Bari's okay,
yeah.
right? But then the
Cool.
second option is Bologna.
Yeah.
Like if Bari closes, you got to go to
So
Bologna.
he said, I know that in Bari they have a professor coming from Bologna once a month to do this kind of operation because this is little towns. They're far apart. They are, that's why a lot of people left because.
I mean, medical services were very limited. I think American people don't
And
understand
that
that.
puts into context why these traditions pass
Yes.
down to somebody
Yes.
like you,
Like-
because where are you going to go, right? If you have to know how to do this stuff.
And so my grandfather said, "Okay, I'm going to go back and tell the mother," and he goes, "I suggest you make it quick because he's going to be at the hospital in 3 days. You got to take her there." So the next morning, my mother couldn't go because she was pregnant of my sister, my third sister, and she had my other second sister. And my grandmother had to go open the baracca in the piazza, the shed where they would sell
To sell,
food. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's where they were making the living, from that. And so my grandfather took me. Now, I didn't see what he put in the back of the truck, but when we got to Bari, he knew he had to leave me, and his heart broke. I now remembering back, now I could see my grandfather, he just couldn't do it. So he took me to every little store, buying me dolls, little, le pesche, what it was, not the fruit, but le pesche was like
the cake?
No, it was like a little things twirled in a cardboard, and inside they would put candy, they would put little cribble baby Jesus, or they would put little dolls or a whistle inside, and they would sell them to little kids as a gift.
No, I never heard of this.
In my town, so there was a lot of those that he bought for me, and then he would buy me so many other gifts so that puppets, so that I could, he thought, to buy me off. So when he took me to the hospital, and the sister came down because the sisters were there, the
nuns.
Yeah, they would, dressed with the veil
Sure.
and all.
Because a lot of orders of nuns, people don't know, were just hospital nuns.
Yes.
So we're used to nuns who ran schools, but there was also orders that only did hospitals.
So my grandfather said, sorella, dice, sai, I want you to look after my granddaughter because she's the oldest. She's the apple of our mother's eye and our eyes. You have to look at her guard her, watch as if she's your child. And she goes, I have something for you. He goes outside. He pulls I still get choked up. He pulls the cover on the truck, on the tre ruote, and you see apples. Crates of apples, crates of grapes, crates of oranges. Questo ve li lascio tutto a voi. I'm leaving all to you guys, just as long as you look after my granddaughter. Like if that nun would not move from me, even at night, she would put drops of water in my mouth when I was operated with the straw because I couldn't swallow because I was all packed up. He says, in 2 weeks, I'll come and pick her up. So now he was to leave me there. I went ahead and told you the story. But before he would leave, and he would give me all these stories. Rosa, I'm going to go. You're going to, no. And I would grab on his leg. No, Mila, shut. I don't want you to leave me. No. Voy a venir a casa con te. And I couldn't talk because,
course,
you know, but I was crying. He goes, no. He says, listen, okay. He says, you stay with now let me go park the truck and I'll be back. That's how he got me.
Yeah.
He left.
Wow.
He left. But he never turned back. And I know he was crying because... And I just now reminisce at that moment, and I owe my life to my grandfather. You don't know the crates and crates that he put in there, like 4 crates of grapes, fresh grapes, 4 crates of apples, pears, orange, to give to this nun.
Whatever he had.
Fiki.
Yeah.
The figs.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he came back?
In 2
get you?
weeks.
You were cured then.
Yeah, I was still with a packing because they had major surgery they had to go through. And when he saw me, I mean, he was kissing me, I was kissing him. I says, no me lasciare.
God.
And I would grab onto him, no me lasciare più. He goes, no, you're coming home. So.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
powerful to go. We take for
But people in
granted.
America, people today do not realize the benefits that they have. You know, the fact. I mean, like people really don't.
Yeah.
And if he had waited, I mean, and a lot of times in these towns, people died from lack of medicine.
No,
You know, they just
no.
okay. You know, like
Yeah.
you were lucky that you could get to Bari and he could get you there.
Yeah.
And
I was very lucky. Very
I mean,
lucky.
people don't realize how many families lost children.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
You know, people don't realize. It's another story. My grandmother's aunt lost. She had 7. Should I tell the story? Is it a good story?
I don't
I think it's an
I don't know
interesting
the story.
story. I might have said this before. If I've said it before, Nikki, cut it out. My grandmother's aunt. My grandmother had an aunt, her mother's sister, who had 7 children,
Wow.
and 4 of them died in 18 months.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know how?
I do know. This is a good. This is I think very
Poppy?
interesting.
Poppy has to do with poppy seeds?
No, I'll tell you how they died. We never understood it. My aunt used to tell me, my grandmother's sister, so she was older than my grandmother by 10 years, and she remembered this drama because my grandmother was a little girl when it happened. The kids would die from coughing. So the doctor, the doctor they sent for, the doctor said, listen, they have pneumonia. You have to keep the house warm. If the house gets cold, they're going to die. And they were dying. They didn't all die at once. They died at separate times. And my aunt said it was like the fires of hell in that house because they built a fire so strong to heat the house for the children not to die. And every time, no matter what they did, these 4 kids died. But it gets better. I'm going to tell you what we found out. And I remember this story. My aunt remembered it much better than my grandmother. I don't even think my grandmother remembered it because it had all happened around the time my grandmother was born. So I did 23andMe. My brother and my mother will do 23andMe. And guess what? We come back we're carriers of cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
Those kids all died about 7 or 8 years old around that time. And my aunt used to say, but they would cough and we couldn't get rid of the cough.
Pecado.
But I figured something else out. My great-grandmother's sister, I think, married a cousin because they had the same last name. And why that's important is
Yeah.
cystic fibrosis, you
See.
need to have 2. I'm a carrier.
Yeah.
You need to have 2. So the mother and the father both have to be carriers for the kid to get it.
Yeah.
And I think because the last names were the same
Yeah.
and they were both in Piano di Sorrento, I
Yeah.
think the 2 of them, they're in Trinidad, which is a frazione,
Yeah.
and he was from the frazione. I think they never said they were cousins. I think they were cousins.
Now, why I'm asking you if you knew that they
Yeah.
died is this. In my town, when I was growing up, remember I came here when I was 12, okay? And so the story is that a lot of kids would die, young kids. And guess why they would die? The kids wanted to teeth. They had a very bad stomach ache, Instead of giving tea to make them sleep and not cry, they would go get the poppies. They would put it in water. They would do like boil it like a tea. Now, with the poppy seeds, you have to give it to a baby, a drop it's needed, and the baby will go to sleep. Some mothers, they didn't know how to do this. They would put 3 to 4 drops, and those babies would never wake up.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Okay? So that's why I had to ask, because I remember this, that a lot of kids, they would not call my grandmother, or they didn't have time to call my grandmother. And before my grandmother would ask, how many drops did you give him?
Oh, she knew.
And yeah. He says, no, it's just not even a half for the teething and all. And most of all, for the teething, we would make our own cheese. And if you take the fresh cheese, the way my grandmother used to make, they didn't have chuchetti, the pacifiers. So they would make like a hard cheese, like a scamozza, really hard, and they would shape it the shape of a pacifier.
Wow.
And that's what they would give to the baby, especially to us, my grandmother, with that. And that's how we would break our teeth on it, with the scamozza cheese.
If God ever blesses us with another child, my wife and I'm saying no chuchi, we're getting
Oh,
cheese.
no.
What's going to be Nicole's
Is
take
that
on
not
this?
the most Italian thing you ever heard? The kids pacifiering
Yeah,
on
that's-
scamozza? That's the most amazing I ever heard in
most
my life.
people,
But it makes sense. Of course it makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense. And even today, a lot of people today, after this thing with COVID, they're going into the old-fashioned ways.
Of course, that's that. I mean, we're so far removed from so many things that, like, silly things, but I don't mean silly in terms of, like, breast milk in the ear, like, laugh at silly. I mean silly in terms of small, simple things, I guess I should say, that we've forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Garlic. Garlic is
exactly.
Another great,
The values of garlic.
My grandmother used to go like this, put it on things. She would put it. Even if we would just lightly get burned, not honey, but you know what she was? Olive oil and salt, and that would olive oil and salt.
Olive oil
came back
has
to
so
me?
many qualities. Think about the Romans clean themselves in olive oil. Right?
Yeah.
My family, my great grandmother had the most beautiful skin. Every time she ate a watermelon, she cut it to the white. She would rub, and my whole family did this. And when I was a kid, we would do it. You finish watermelon, your whole face was in watermelon.
What about when What about when the baby has like a very dandruff attached
Cradle
to it?
cap. Yeah.
You know how they used to clean it?
No.
They used to get like those combs that you kill lice, but they're small, the
Yeah.
Italian combs,
Yeah.
white. They would dip it in olive oil, drip the oil, really saturate the baby's head, not to drip it in his face, and all.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
would
yeah.
put a little towel, and then very lightly with that, they would go over and they would bring it all up
It's so
without
funny.
even hurting the baby.
My daughter had that when she was born, and my wife was trying to find a natural way to do it, and somebody told her to try it with coconut oil. Same concept, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what worked. Yeah.
Even with
that's
coconut
exactly what she did. Yeah,
oil.
coconut oil.
When we used to kill the pig,
Yeah.
I don't know, did you guys, in my town, it was...
I've never
everybody
killed my
killed-
own
everybody
pig, but
killed
I,
it.
My
yeah,
father
family-
used to kill-
I've never done it. But
No.
I know plenty of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we used to grow our own pigs, and we used to use it to the tea. This is another story, but I'm going to tell you the things that we used to do. It was a thing of survival, you could say. So they would kill the biggest pig, there, and then what happened? My father made these kind of coffins that they would throw the pig in there, and then he would kill it over on the neck, and he would let all the blood come out. But the pig, before it was put in there, my grandmother would brush it clean to a T. I mean, everything had to be, and then would throw in there. So once he would do the kill, and the pig would be done, the blood would go into from the hole that he would put near the head. It would go into this big vat. And my grandmother used to take it away, used to make it drop to the last drop. And that used to be kept. And then with the pig, they used to open it, take everything out from the pig, because now, you know, the casing that you eat sausage over there, that's where you used to do the casing, the intestine.
Sure, of course.
So they would take all the intestine, they would put it in another a basin, and then they would put a lot of lemon, warm water, and that's how they used to kill that bacteria and the smell of the pig.
Sure, so for people to understand,
feces, yeah.
sausage is the intestine.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you there's people out there who didn't figure this out. Maybe you're not going to eat sausage.
No.
but
Sorry to
that's
not
what I hate to
casing.
tell
But
you.
yeah.
Sausage
Yeah.
is the intestines
The
that are
casing.
stuffed.
Yeah.
The
Right.
ca-
So we all know what the intestines do.
Right.
So you got to make that clean.
Clean.
You got to make
and we
that
have to
clean.
turn them. My grandmother would turn them inside out with a finger. She would knot it, and then she would put it in this lukewarm water with a lot of lemon, and she would let it stay there and clean, and then put it in this water to take out then the lemon, so that it had to be.
Well, the acid, I guess, would work.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a food
Right.
safety.
Yeah,
Somebody
no.
Yeah.
So screaming, but the acid was an acidic.
Yeah, and la buccia del limone, the lemon, she wouldn't, and then she would put it in this water, until the whole smell
Yeah.
was gone. And it
Lemon's
was
great. I
gone.
mean, even now, my family, like, people wash cutting boards. Cutting boards are wood; they're
Yeah,
porous. You
yeah.
can't wash it with soap.
Soap,
and the,
no,
lemon.
lemon.
Lemon and
Well, I'll
salt's
tell you
the only
something.
thing you
Bravo,
should
Another
use.
yeah.
one of my grandmother's things was, because Sorrento's lemon people, right? That's
Yeah.
on grandma's side. They would take, anytime my grandmother used the lemon, right? So she would like squirt a lemon. She kept the squish the
Squish,
lemon.
yeah.
Then she'd put it in a pot. Like she wanted to clean her pots.
Yes.
She'd boil water.
Like a
so
sponge.
if you had a stain in a pot you couldn't get rid of,
Boiled lemons. in
she
there.
would boil lemon rinds, with not the whole lemon, with the little
Yeah.
that you squeezed
Yeah.
in a thing of water, and boil it and boil it and boil it
Until
till it
everything-
came clean.
That's right. We still do that in my family. Lemons and salt.
That's what I
clean.
do when something gets stuck. That's
Because
what
they
I
never
do.
wasted anything.
No,
a
no.
lemon, a lemon, squeezed lemon
So-
that you're gonna throw away.
Yeah.
My grandmother's generation, everything got used multiple
Bravo.
times.
Yeah.
Yes. And so this pig. So now the fat of the pig, my grandmother used to make soap from it.
Oh yes, with ashes, right? Was that good soap? Can I be
Yes.
honest with you?
They say it's the best soap.
Yes,
That's what they say,
we
yeah.
used to wash our clothes.
And it lasts like 10,000
I,
years.
listen, I
Like
went.
it
I
never
went.
goes bad.
It didn't smell.
Yeah, no.
But it was.
I went to a devil's advocate, right? So I got all these skin. I got many problems, but skin is one of them. So a lot of soaps I break out with, right?
Yeah.
So I bought this primitive soap, right? And I was but it dried me out. I'm just crazy. I'm just trying to say, I'm just saying, like we have old stuff, like
That's why you have to put,
I wonder.
Who knows?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I never washed. My grandmother used to wash clothes in a tub in the sink, right?
Yeah.
She used to wash the dresses. I said, "Oh, but why are you doing this? We have a washing machine." She
Because-
said, "It comes out better."
Better, yeah.
Right. So she had the washboard.
Yeah.
I think I'm the last person that saw that
No,
we
we
have to
have
go
one
out and
in
buy
the basement.
washboard.
I remember the glass
Oh,
washboard.
Yeah. I still do it. I still do
You
it.
think, and
I still do it.
I
Most
always
of
thought
my
it was
clothes I wash-
drama. Because she liked to say she got up 5 o'clock in the morning. She was washing. It was like because of the
Yeah,
drama.
woe
I
is
was,
me.
Do you think the dresses come out better?
Yeah, I think so because it's the old-fashioned
Why don't we
way
call
to do
Nicole?
it.
I still.
Can we have your
I
wife
love
come
it.
in and do a comp? Let's say we're gonna, because she's a fashion person. We're gonna have her wash one of your shirts in the.
My wife is very
the
particular
bagnolo.
about how clothes are washed too.
Yeah,
It's very
but-
particular.
Me
But
too.
even for me, I
too,
do.
with my
Do you know
husband.
how to make the soap? We should have a soap making
No,
class.
I
Let's
was,
go back to Chicago.
the
I
pig.
think it was
I was
ash.
12 years old. I was not when I got here, so I was pretty young. I
In
could just-
Sorrento, the tradition was in Piano di Sorrento. Was the tradition was, they would do what's I forget the word when you have a big bonfire in Italy for a saint.
Oh,
There's a word
shucks,
for
I
it.
do
It's
know
a
it.
big. You know when they put all the wood and the
Yeah,
stuff.
they
put
used to do it, yes.
Fallow. Is that the word?
Yeah,
Fallow,
fallow,
something like that.
yes,
Fallow,
yeah,
something like
fallow,
that.
see.
So they would do for January 6th for the Epiphany. They would do
My
a
wife's
big
birthday.
fallow, and then the trees would burn, and the ashes were used to make soap for the whole year.
Wow.
Because you have to think about this. January 6th, who's getting ready to get slaughtered? The pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you got to kill the pig in January because it's
So
the
you got
coldest
the
part of the
ashes,
year.
then you get the
So-
fat,
and then you get the fat.
boom.
But it was considered that the baby Jesus blessed the ashes because they were
Yes,
burned in his
yes,
honor.
yeah.
Wow.
So the trees, the wood, the bonfire was
yeah.
made in baby Jesus'
Talk
honor.
about faith.
Yeah,
Yeah, talk
faith,
about
and
faith.
and it was like holy ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as everybody would kill their pig in January, they would take the
Bravo,
ashes
yeah.
and the pig fat
Yep.
and make the soap.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could find. We always talk about like the last of this. I wonder if we could find places where they're still making that.
Calabria.
So that would be
Calabria.
something like that.
Whenever you
Maybe in my
want to
town-
find
maybe
something,
in my town,
Somebody still does, right?
Still does.
if
Somebody
you have a
still
cousin who's making soap in Italy,
Yeah, let us know.
Give John a
please.
call.
Can we?
So-
Send us an email.
yes.
does. And not only soap, she would do also candles.
Oh, sure, of course. Tallow candles,
She
which
would do candles with the fat of the pig.
Oh, that's that's
people
Italian.
don't understand. Now, this is interesting, right? Because we have this sense in our mind of like what peasant food is, right? Olive oil was very expensive.
Yeah.
Pig fat was less expensive because you
Yes.
killed a pig.
Yes.
So people think nowadays the idea of lard and this and the pricings, but like that was the cheapest fuel you could get. And tallow candles are the least, they give off the least light,
Light,
right? Talk about
yeah.
poverty. Like if these people could burn olive oil, they would have been rich.
Didn't that happen to Queen Victoria? I heard a story that
Yes, they did. That's true. They to mess with her, they replaced her staff. What do you call it, the palace staff? They replaced the wax candles, which were very expensive, beeswax candles, with tallow candles, and they melted all over the guests.
they had a big party and all the beef fat
all the chandeliers
dripping
were
on
beef
everybody's
fat.
head.
Yeah.
You know, you reminded me of my grandmother. Told me another story. So my grandmother's father was from Arzano outside Naples. He used to take, and how my great grandparents was an interesting story. But he used to take egg white and put it on his face, a raw egg at night. See, I wish I could. Was it a raw egg or egg white? And I used to put on his face. It was a raw egg.
I know exactly.
It was a raw egg, and
You
my
know
grandmother
this?
said her father had the most beautiful skin
Could be.
from the egg.
Yes,
Is that
because
true? The raw egg?
Yeah, because it would pull on all the stuff from the skin, and yes. The other thing
Is it egg
also
white?
makes-
egg
It's
whites.
Makes
egg
sense,
Egg white.
really. Because
So,
it becomes a film.
Could I tell you another story now that we're talking about that? So,
We could open a spa.
oh my God,
Big fat soap.
Alandiga spa.
Alantigo,
fat
yeah,
soap.
Roman
Has
And
a-
you could do egg
has a-
white.
No,
egg white,
no,
facial
listen
treatment.
to this. This
No,
is
you
going to
might
be
be
very
wrong.
interesting for you.
Get
so,
the watermelon.
my sister twisted her leg. My sister, we were playing motorcycle. I must have pushed her. She twisted her leg. Oh, my mother, she gave it to me good. But my grandmother took my sister, put it inside. You know the ropes, but these ropes, when you open them up, when you undid the rope, they would be like a cotton type inside, like cotton types, but not the cotton types now, more like abrasive, like, you know, those, when they brush food with sauce, those kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
those
like-
bristles,
Yeah.
they would be on there with the little cotton that would make it soft. So my grandmother, she takes the fresh eggs. She would break them. She would put the yolk in one pot and the white in another. She would do like about 6 to 8 eggs, and then she would put a handful of salt in it, and she would start with the fork. She would start whipping it and whipping it and whipping it until it became so peaked. Okay, then she would take this rope that she just undid. She would she would do like a little blanket. She would dip it in there, and then she would put it around the legs.
Like a cast.
Like a cast. It wasn't broken, the foot. It was swelled up.
Well, Paisani, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. This is a kind of natural break in the conversation for us and a place where we felt we could split this thing into 2 episodes. Like I said, we had so much fun doing this. I hope you see from this first part how easily it was to enjoy the conversation with this wonderful lady. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See that you're born an Italian. If you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will